Omelets are on the menu today on Cooking with Chef Jeff. So a traditional French omelet consists of eggs that are scrambled very soft, almost still runny. Then they're just folded over, no cheese, and they're topped with herbs. So today we're going to do something a little different than that. We're going to do what's called a Western or a Denver style omelet. And that's going to have our eggs, it's going to have onion, bell pepper, and also ham along with cheddar cheese. So the first thing we're going to do is cut our onion, just like we do on a lot of our recipes. So have our onion with our sharp knife, and I can't stress enough that you want to have as sharp a knife as possible for this reason, okay? A sharp knife is a safer knife when you're cutting through things. If you're trying to cut through this with a dull knife, a couple things will happen. One, it releases more of those awful onion things that make you cry. And two, you're having to put a lot more force on the knife. So if you're trying to cut through something and you're bearing down on it and your thumb or finger accidentally gets in the way, the injury that you're going to suffer is going to be a lot worse. And if you do happen to cut yourself, if you have a sharp knife, the injury heals a lot faster than if you cut yourself with a dull knife because your skin isn't torn quite so much. So we got our onion cut in half, top and tail cut in half, and we're going to go ahead and, just like before, peel off the outer skin. And we're going to apply more of a cutting onions for soup method. Okay, so we're going to start with our cuts parallel to the stem and root, but we're going to keep our cuts closer together than we did when we made our chicken soup before. And then instead of doing the inner cuts, we're just going to go straight to the cross cuts because we want our onion pieces big enough that we know they're there and we can taste them. So we're going to do that, put that in our bowl. I'm going to finish cutting this onion and then we'll move on to bell peppers. Okay, now that our onion is done, we're going to go ahead and prep our bell pepper. Now, the way I first learned to cut peppers at home and just in work is to stand it up and just run it right down the middle. We're going to do a different method today. This is something that was taught to me by a former boss at the U of O where I work. And what he taught us to do is stand your pepper up. If it doesn't want to stand up, then just nip a little bit off the bottom so it does. Okay, nice and stable. And instead of cutting down the middle, because if you do that, you're going to have to pull the seeds out and deal with all that stuff, we're going to just go along the side, kind of tracing along the ribs here. Again, a sharp knife is your friend. And we're going to make little pepper strips. And that leaves very little on the bottom to deal with if you want, and even less to deal with on the top because you've got a little bit of good meat here, but then you got this stem, and we don't want to mess with that. So we're going to set that aside. And now that we've got our pepper steaks, it's very easy to lay it down. And we're just going to cut that first into strips, and then we're going to turn it, and we're going to cut it into dices. One more. That. And turn. And cut down. So we'll go ahead and finish off our pepper, and then we'll dice our ham, and then we'll get going. All right, the last thing we need to cut up for our omelet is our ham. So what I've got here is a nice bone-in ham steak. And first thing we're going to do is we're going to get in here and watch where your fingers are. We're going to cut the bone out of the ham. Now we're not going to get rid of it. We're going to set it aside and save it because we can use that for other things later. But for now, just like the peppers, we're going to cut our ham into strips. Similar size to the peppers too. And then after that, we're going to cross cut it into dice. Just like so. So when you're doing this, when you're dicing something like that, as far as using your knife, so we got the front and the back of the knife, so the toe of the knife, you want to keep that contacting the cutting board as much as you can, and then just glide through, okay? Because if you do that and you choke up on the grip, so don't use the handle as a handle, use the handle as a counterweight, okay? And you power through, that puts all your cutting force on this back half of the knife, and you turn it and stack it up, and you just glide through, okay? So that sharp knife and proper technique, this can be a very, very fast and easy job. I'm going to finish knocking this out, then we'll move on to eggs. Okay, the last thing we need to prep before we make our omelets are our eggs. So typically a entree size portion for an omelet is 3 eggs, so that's what we're going to do here. So I've got my eggs, I've got my bowl, and I've also got my damp paper towel that was under my cutting board. It keeps my cutting board from moving around as I'm cutting stuff, and it's also going to keep my bowl from moving around as I'm whipping stuff with my whisk here. So, crack our eggs. Again, don't hit it on the side of the bowl. Hit it on a blunt surface so you shatter the egg instead of shearing it. Okay? So you're going to put one, and then get in here with our thumbs. Push your thumbs in, and pull apart and let the egg out. We'll do that one more time here. Good hit. So it's nice and shattered. And then get in there with your fingers and just pull it apart. So that way, take a look at our shell here. If you have any bits of shell that fall out into the egg, they're going to be bigger pieces. They're going to be a lot easier to get out. So let's do the third one. Okay. Into our dish. Okay. And totally optional up to you. If you want to sprinkle in a little bit of cayenne pepper for a little extra zip, go for it. I'm going to go ahead and do that. Not much, just enough that you can see it. Okay. Then we're going to take our whisk, and just like before when we made French toast, we're going to go ahead and hit the yolks and break them up, and then just start whipping them against your bowl. But we don't want a super uniform homogeneous mixture. Okay, one characteristic of the omelet is, at least the Denver omelet, is you want it to brown. So we want to keep our whites separate from our yolks because the egg white is where all the protein is, and that's what's going to brown. So there's our eggs loosely beaten together. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over here to our stove. I'm going to get my pan preheated, and we're going to start cooking. Okay, so we're over here at the stove ready to go. So I have a skillet that is heating over medium to medium-ish high heat right now. I've got a rubber spatula for moving stuff around. I have all the ingredients you're going to need staged here ready to go. So first thing we're going to put in our pan, well, the first thing was I hit the pan with a little bit of nonstick spray, just a little insurance. Next, for flavor and more nonstick, we're going to go ahead and put in a little bit of butter. Let that melt. Okay. Now, salted or unsalted, it's up to you. We're using salted because that's what we have here. If you use unsalted butter, you may want to put a little more salt in the eggs when you're cooking them here in a little bit. But I'm going to get that melted, and we're going to go ahead and put in some onions, and the amounts are of course up to you. Some peppers, and a little bit of our ham. So about like so. And we're going to move things around. And that's where the spatula comes in. And you can use the spatula to stir stuff around. Or you've got a curvy-sided pan here like I do. You can stir it around and you can flip your ingredients. So you're just getting under and it's just a little wrist flip as you're going forward. See there? Forward flip, forward flip, forward flip. So we're going to go ahead and saute these. So what we're looking for is we're looking for the onions to be soft, have a little bit of color on them. We're looking for the peppers to be warm through, and we want the ham to almost start to caramelize. So once we're to that point, we'll come back and we'll add the eggs. Okay, it's been 3 or 4 minutes later, stirring our stuff constantly, and as you see, we've developed some pretty nice color in all of our ingredients. The onions are soft, the peppers are soft, so we're going to go ahead and move to our eggs. So first thing we're going to do is turn our stove heat down to about medium-low. We're going to take our eggs that we beat a little bit ago. We're going to go ahead and pour them over top of our ingredients. Okay. Take our spatula and cut all around. Move your ham, pepper, and onions around. Make sure they're evenly distributed. Okay. Now at this point, before we do anything else to them, we're going to go ahead and season the eggs. So we're going to add just a little bit of salt. In our case, we use salted butter, so we don't want to go overboard with this. If you use unsalted butter, you may want to use more. It's up to you. And we're going to go ahead and add some black pepper as well. Okay. Now that we've done that, what we're going to do Just like we did at the beginning, we're going to cut around the outside, and then once we've done that, we're going to cut in and hold. We're going to tip our pan a little bit. Okay, what this is going to do, it's going to bring our uncooked egg out to the edge. And we'll just help get it out of the middle and help cook it a little faster. All right. Now that that's there, we're going to go ahead and let this sit over still medium-low heat for the next 3 to 4 minutes, or until the eggs are pretty well set up. Then we're going to go ahead and fold and finish. Okay, a few minutes later, we're almost set on top. We're just kind of glistening, still a little bit of moist. That's okay. Now, if we're making a traditional style omelet, this would be great. We could add our cheese, fold it over, and put it on a plate. If you prefer your eggs to be a little more well done, let's go ahead and flip this over. So, what you want to do is take your spatula and get under, make sure it's not sticking to the pan anymore. And you could use like a pancake turner for this, or we can do the flip method like we did earlier when we were sauteing the veggies. So, shake it around, make sure it's not sticking to anything, get away from anything you're going to hit, okay? And just go for it. Just make it like that. All right, if you're unsure of your flipping skills, here's a different way that you can turn your omelet, okay? So we still have our omelet, just still glistening, ready to turn over. Just like before when we flipped it in the pan, we're gonna go around with our rubber spatula, make sure it's loose, and then we're gonna go to a turning spatula. And you wanna make sure that it's nice and set, as best you can here. Get under, tilt your pan, like that. Sometimes it'll break on the way over, sometimes it'll break when you're flipping it, the first way as well. But this is a better way to keep your food from going onto the countertop or onto your hand or the floor if you're unsure about flipping it over in the pan without any help. Nice caramelization, nice little crust on the outside. A traditional French omelet, this wouldn't be good. A Denver omelet, this is awesome. So we're gonna go ahead and bring it back to our pan. And at this point, we're going to go ahead and cheese it. So, we got some cheese. Go ahead and sprinkle it over top of our omelet. And we're going to let that melt while the other side caramelizes and finish the setting. So in about a minute, minute and a half, we'll come back. We're going to fold it out onto our plate. All right, side 2 is set. Cheese is melted. So we're going to go ahead and put this on our plate. So, as long as it's moving around, we don't need our spatula anymore. We can set that aside. What we're going to do is come over to our plate, and we're going to put the edge of the omelet right where you want it to be, come about halfway off, and then turn it over. Just like that. And we'll come back over here, and we're going to go ahead and garnish it with a little more of our cheese. And for a little bit of brightness, we have some chopped parsley on hand from another thing. So we're going to go ahead and sprinkle some parsley on it. And for the final touch, a couple pieces of buttered toast. All right, thank you so much for watching my video. There's a recipe for this in the video description. Go ahead and give it a try at home, or do whatever variations you want to do. If you do, go ahead and mention it in the comments. I like to see that. Do subscribe to my channel. Click on the little bell next to the subscription box that gives you notifications every time I post a new video. Thank you again for watching. We'll see you next time.